Hi, everyone, and welcome back to ShiftED Talks, a podcast by GradRight. Today, we're joined by Dr. Bobbi Kurshan, Fellow and Innovation Advisor at the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education. Dr. Kurshan is a major figure in education technology and innovation, with a career spanning math education to the development of early tech products for Microsoft and Apple. Dr. Kurshan has been at the forefront of transforming how technology shapes learning. Creator of the Education Entrepreneurship Master's degree at the University of Pennsylvania, she now serves as Innovation Advisor. In the following episode, we dive into how AI is reshaping education, admissions, and the future of learning, along with its potential to level the playing field globally. Tune in for an insightful journey through the intersection of tech, education, and entrepreneurship with Dr. Bobbi Kurshan. Hi, Bobbi. How are you today? And thanks for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Fantastic. I'm wondering if you can tell our listeners a bit about yourself, your academic journey, maybe some bits on your entrepreneurial projects, as well as your academic position.
Great. It's nice to be here and nice to speak with you. And I am, my journey's kind of been zigzag, but it's been somewhat related if you look at it from where at the end, well, I wouldn't say the end, but at the point I'm at now, if we look back, the journey's had some purpose and some direction. But at the time, it seemed somewhat zigzag. I really realized recently that my journey has been about the ecosystem of learning and innovation and how that ecosystem works. I started out as a math teacher and studied mathematics at the university. And then I went on to get my master's degree in computer science. And when I was getting that degree, I went to the university and said, I really want to do my degree in the use of technology in learning and with kids and how kids learn using computers. Well, today everybody is talking about that all the time, how we learn, what we do. And at the time I was doing it, I had a graduate school dean who said to me, we're never going to use computers in education, particularly in K through 12 education. And I looked at him and I said, well, I don't know what planet you're living on, but that's where we're going. And in retrospect, I probably was looking back at his point of view, and from his filter, he was been a dean probably for 40 years at the university. He probably was lucky he was using mainframe computers. Mini computers were just coming in at the time. And so I went on to study, because they required it, that I did my comprehensives in artificial intelligence, where we're talking about very, very small things going on at that time around AI. It was just at the very, very tip of the iceberg. And I went on to stay at the university and get my doctorate in instructional design. And again, using the topic of how kids learn using technology. And that's what I did my doctoral work on. I went and stayed as a professor at several universities after I got my doctorate and thought I would end up my career being a university professor. But I got very engaged in the whole movement around the use of mini computers and microcomputers at the time. And I began to build and design educational products. I designed some of the very early products for Microsoft, for Apple, and for many of the large publishers. I did that for several years and enjoyed it greatly. I ended up being approached because at the time there was a great interest in bringing public educational technology companies. Some of the very early companies clearly were based on the gaming companies that were getting a lot of attention at the time. And we called it edutainment. We've come a long way, baby, since edutainment. And so I ended up designing products and being approached by one of the investment banking firms to write a white paper on the potential for educational technology in the investment side. And of course, went on to stay in the investment banking world for a long time, running a fund, running a nonprofit in the space, and enjoyed it very much. When I realized, and the dot-com bust came, that I probably ought to go back to my roots and look at how I could create a master's program in education entrepreneurship, that's when I ended up back in the university at the University of Pennsylvania. And I created a master's program, ran a certificate program, and ran their business plan competition and created their innovation center. At the time, which was 13 years ago, that was pretty innovative. There wasn't a lot of that
I would
going
say
on.
so.
And
Yeah.
now, of course, every university has an innovation center. Sometimes I wonder how innovative those centers are, but they have the name Innovation Center. And I sometimes wonder where we're going as we look at AI and how we're going to innovate going forward. And to me, that's the most important question. And it, of course, gets us to the question of how we got to AI. One of my personal journeys over this time is to explore my own use of technology and innovative women. I've become extremely interested in women and innovation and published a book on called Innovate Hers on how entrepreneurial women rise to the top.
I've actually read the book, and I can I can vouch for it. It's quite remarkable, and to see all of these professionals in one space with such completely different journeys and completely different stories, it's quite inspirational.
Well, thank you. And I
So
do
thank you
think
for that.
telling
Yes.
stories is the most important thing.
This is very interesting coming from an innovation expert. So I hope we get to touch on that again throughout the conversation. Perhaps it'll come naturally. So on the topic of students, technology, use of technology in the classroom, let's say, wanted to ask you, with the integration of AI and other emerging technologies into nearly every corner of higher education, as you seem to predict before everybody else saw the reality. I want to talk a bit about international students in this regard. So I'm wondering how you anticipate or perhaps have already seen international students' interaction or interactions with AI, emerging technologies. And I'm asking this in two primary contexts. One is in the admissions process, as much as you can speak to that. And the other aspect would be in a current students or graduates employment search. So how have you seen AI in these two aspects or these two sectors that you could give us some insight on that experience for international students?
I think the growth of international students is not something new. They've been coming to the universities in the U.S. for many, many years. And there's always ups and downs, whatever the politics is, whatever the financial opportunity is. So international students really want to attend Western universities. So they're looking to go to the UK, to New Zealand, to Australia, and to Scotland, and Ireland, and the US, Canada. And so when they look for those programs, they're clearly coming, I think, to universities in the U.S. because, one, they want to work in the U.S. So they believe that by getting a degree in the U.S., they're going to be able to work in the U.S. And that's probably one of their primary reasons. Are our universities better? Probably not. There's some programs that are good. There's more opportunity in terms of diversity of programs. But I think they're coming mainly to get a job and stay here. I think in addition, they're coming because right now the innovative work going on in universities is there's small number of slots around the world because, one, we don't have capacity to hire or bring on any more professors because we're in the process of just bringing our instructional staff and our professor staff up to speed. We don't have a lot of experts. We can't say anybody's been an expert for very long in this field. So people that have now become the experts are people that have probably become experts the same way you and I learned about AI or learning about AI. They may study it a little bit more and they may go at it from a different filter, but experts are just becoming into play. The same thing is true with degrees. For example, the University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School of Education just announced a new totally online master's program for AI in education.
Wow.
So those are the kind of degrees that are just starting. And did Ryan, who's a wonderful professor, who's helping to start the program, Dr. Ryan Baker, did he know a whole lot about this before he started? Probably not. But he knew enough of how to learn and how to study the field to be able to build a program. And remember, universities are where we learn to learn. University isn't what we teach you. So international students are coming for that reason. The second part of your question is, how do I think AI is helping those students, one, get financial help and get admissions? I think students are way ahead of the people that are running the side of the business that's doing that. Students have been using AI or whatever they wanted to call it before, using Google search to find out what schools they want to go to help them write essays. Are they doing it more effectively with AI? I think they're doing it differently. And the story's still out, and if it's more effective and if it's hurting or helping the process. But I truly believe it's helping expand the way we look at information, the way we review data, and the way we learn to prompt our technology. If we go back and look at what happened when the Google and the internet first came into play, we had to teach people how to ask Google questions. And we would spend a lot of time saying to students, how do you do an internet search? And what is an internet search? And how do you trust the data? Well, we've now multiplied that 100-fold when we go to what's AI. We have to teach students, admissions officers, and learners of all kinds, whether they're professors learning to teach this subject or whether they're students using it. We have to teach them how to prompt the AI. In addition, just as with the internet, we need to teach them to be discriminating about the data and the information. And so right now we're in that period of going to be a lot of bad things out there happening. But I believe there's a lot more things that are valuable and worth fighting for that I wouldn't close it off. So are we helping universities find better students through AI? I suspect we're helping them find more students. So we've expanded people that can now learn about their schools that didn't before. So one of the issues for smaller schools and not research-based universities, not tier research one universities, schools that would have never been found by international students are being found.
Right.
We're totally turning the agent business upside down because of AI. And we are also totally turning the way we fill out applications and get information about students. I think we're going to have to reevaluate what it means to write an essay to get into college.
Yes.
Does it mean it was bad because they used AI? No. Does it mean we need to analyze our question that we're asking the student to write about better? Do we need to maybe ask them to, the same way we used to ask them to show us their work for solving math problems? Maybe we need to ask students to show us the process they went through in writing their essay. Maybe they submit 3 drafts of the essay and say, at this point, here's the prompt I used, or at this point, because that process to me is a much better way to see how students learn than asking them to write an essay and turn it in as the final essay. We used to say the same thing, and we still do about teaching people to solve math problems. Show me your work, because I want to see where you made your mistake, or I want to see where you understood the algorithm.
Yeah.
So I think AI will definitely improve admissions. I think it will open up opportunities for more ways of finding financial aid and accessing financial aid. And I think it will provide more options for students to find a place that fits what they want to do and that they can afford going forward.
Great, thank you. The piece on essays is very relevant to my own work. I've tutored hundreds of students on their statements of purpose for graduate school. And what I have found most often is the habit of utilizing, AI generation in order to compose these essays. And precisely to what you were speaking about earlier, it's very obvious to me that AI does not have to be, this negative tool. In fact, students can harness it as long as they do so responsibly and that they engage with it not only responsibly, but intelligently. So what I can see from all of the essays that have come in, and these are from international students, specifically from India, is that it's as though they've simply added their resume to, let's say, Chat GPT, and have stated, write a college essay. And so this is what comes out. And so there is suddenly, and this is the larger fear about AI, right? Suddenly something inhuman is being passed from the student to the admissions committee. And it's really unfortunate. And I've told many students, you're better off writing a terribly written essay that has real content about who you are and can give us some kind of picture than this construct. And you've added really, Bobbi, you've added a whole new dimension to this, which is, hang on, let us see the process. And in that process, I think many things come up. One of them, which is what you said, was we can see their learning process. We can see how they learn. We can also see how they organize. We can also see other skills that go into that. And in a sense, it's much more intimate of a process than even getting an essay that has been composed by their own hand entirely. So it really adds, I think it's something very exciting for any admissions offices to consider. Now, this sort of thing requires a prioritization change or shift of sorts, and also bandwidth, of course. And we know that universities, struggle with time and also money to initiate a kind of project like this.
But sort of get into an iterative loop. If we're going to change the process for students to do it, and in the same time, we're building admissions AI solutions to review the essays, to evaluate the application, are we going to find ourselves in a loop of constantly using AI to improve AI, to make admissions, to write essays? So how do we know what part and what places there needs to be human intervention and human decision making? Because right now, and even before there was the kind of applications we have today in admissions, we found what they would go through is they'd feed all the data from that came in on the application as it became more digital, and they'd find these cutoff points, and they would say, well, unless your total score adds up to X, you don't get to the next step. Well, we're going to see even more of that with AI. Now, will it be more effective, and what is the process? So if we're using AI to evaluate the applications and students are using AI to write the application, at what point do we change the process? And this is true of everything we're doing in AI today. To teach writing, and it sounds like you do look at writing and essays, to teach any kind of writing today, we're going to need to change the pedagogy. We've been teaching 5-paragraph essays for writing for, I don't know, probably as long as when I learned to write, which is a long time.
In the West, in any case, yes.
Yeah, in a long time. And what happens is now we're saying, well, we've got this other tool and our brain's thinking differently. Do we need to change the pedagogy of how we teach writing? Maybe we don't start with an outline and 5 essays. I'm not saying that this is the change, but what is it now? What does the pedagogy become? And until we figure that out and test it, we're probably going to get in a very bad loop in trying to figure out what we use from the old pedagogy and what is the new pedagogy. And we're going to confuse students because as teachers learn to use the new technologies, they're going to change their pedagogy in subtle ways, but they're still going to find teachers, professors, and admissions officers that are looking at it with the old lens of thinking about how people write. So we've got an opportunity to make major changes, as we did when the calculator came into the math classroom. So I think this is exciting times. A little bit of chaos will ensue. Will we get some things wrong? Yes. Will we change some things? Absolutely. And will it be better? I have to believe it will be. And I think people are scared of the wrong things about AI right now.
Okay. What is the greatest fear that you think is misdirected, let's say?
I think the biggest fear of AI is that it will feed people bad information and it will go in and replicate your voice or replicate your photo or put out data that's not correct. Will it do that? It absolutely will. Will the systems learn to adjust for that? Absolutely. We've done it in the internet. It's not perfect, but the media has never been perfect. So, and we've always had to trust the media and do our homework. Now it requires us to be more vigilant than we were before. But I think, again, we will find the way to get there. And we happen to be, for those of us that are lucky enough to be here at this moment in time, as AI becomes so important, we're lucky enough to be able to watch the process unfold, be part of the change, and find the things that work the best. Are we going to make mistakes? Absolutely. Are we going to have some things happen that we wish didn't? Absolutely. Are we going to have some things happen that will be fabulous? Even more so.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for those points. I'd like to shift the focus, though only slightly, and discuss also in the realm of students, prospective international students, and that is of financing. Now I'm curious as to how what you have said about these other fields relates to affordability, university affordability, financing, our ability to harness AI and emerging technologies in order to ensure and explore opportunities for students, particularly those from lower income backgrounds, to provide them accessibility to international higher education. So you can say a few words about your thoughts there.
I think that we're, again, looking at a very important space of financing for higher education, not only because of AI, but certainly AI will influence that. I think we're having a whole, change of thought about higher education. What's the value of higher education? Who should pay for higher education? How much should it cost? And all of those questions are affecting not only the student in the country they live, but the international students that are wanting to come to other countries to study. So now they're trying to figure out, is the value of going to the U.S. university or the Canadian university or the Australian university worth the cost? Even if I could get financing to attend the university, will the ROI be worth it? And I think it's incumbent upon people like GradRight to show students where the ROI is. What is it going to cost me? What's my chances of getting a job? What's my chances of making more money or less money? What's the cost of living? And now AI gives us the opportunity to build those scenarios relatively quickly and with a high degree of certainty in predicting those kind of answers. I think in addition, I was reading applications this weekend for the Graduate School of Education Entrepreneurship program at Penn. We're going through our first round of admissions. And I read this wonderful essay from a young man from Africa. And he had found our program, clearly going to the internet and doing some kind of search. And somewhere he believed that our program was totally online and that he didn't have to come. So therefore, he wasn't going to have to worry about the expense of coming to the U.S. and that there was financial aid fully for this program. Was that true? It is online. It's not totally online. So he had a misconception from what he said in his application. And two, yes, we have financial support, but we can't give it to international students. And I'm sure somewhere on our application page, it says that very clearly. But he didn't read that. No matter how he found it, he didn't read that detail. But he really liked the program. So I said back to the admissions committee, which we have a meeting this week, I wrote a note and said, we really need to be clear with this student that this wasn't going to solve the problems that he needs to solve to come here. So I think as we get more AI, we have to be careful about the data we give back to international students on getting into these schools. We can help them. Agents have been helping them get into these schools, but is it helping them find the answer or pick the right programs based on their personal needs? And I think we're still not there yet in terms of
Yes.
admissions. In
Yes.
terms of financing, I think universities in the US are trying to deal with financing even for US students or Canadian students. And I also believe people believe now that their cost of higher education is way too high, and the return they get from paying $150,000 to go to a university or $200,000, or probably a lot more than that at some universities over 4 years, is worth it. They can get the same education by going to their local college or their state university or staying home. So why do they come? It goes back to the very first thing we talked about. They come because they want to get a job in the countries where they're going. And they believe that the cost of doing that, even with loans, is worth it to them to take the risk.
Right. On the topic of ROI and the probability or the notion that this data, employment opportunities and career outcomes, let's say, including salary. I think we also have, it's some sticky territory over there as well. Because while certain data may be accurate, the framework for that data is often not, at least not accurate to particular target populations of students internationally, let's say. So an Indian student is partially basing her decision to apply for a university based on this stated ROI. Now, the stated ROI can be from US News and World Report rankings. It can be from Quora or Reddit. There's this data that's out there that's not necessarily fact-checked by an institution itself, can be overstated or understated, and oftentimes is not time sensitive, right? So it is giving the salaries of graduates 5 years post-graduation, and the implication for the student is that this is the money I'm going to be making right when I throw my graduation hat up. So we definitely have, we have a transparency and accuracy of information or accuracy of data issue out there. And when I hear you talking about AI and the role of AI in this, in collating this data and its dissemination, I see there, partly inspired by this conversation, that there's actually an opportunity there to refine that data and to use AI again responsibly in order to get across that right information. But it sounds to me like that is quite a way to go.
Oh, absolutely. And then taking that one step forward in terms of looking where you go, we have to be able to match the college programs that people are applying to the type of jobs that students can get by saying, and we can do that today. There are several companies out there that are saying, can go through now because of AI, find all the job skills and all the jobs that are listed wherever they want to be, and say, these are what I'm looking for in an applicant for these jobs. And these are the skills that they learned in the degree from the University of Pennsylvania or from Iowa, wherever they went to school. These are the courses they took, and these were the objectives of each course. And we can now easily, not easily, but certainly better than we could before, match those objectives with the job skills. That wasn't so easy because we were using a lot of neural network theory to look at a statement of an objective with a statement of skills needed. And they are not the same language. But now AI can do that cross-reference. So we should be able to give students applying the tools to be able to say, here's the jobs I'm really interested in, and here's the classes I should take at this university in this degree to make sure I have these skills.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So to sort of come full circle in our conversation before we finish up, it sounds as though while we started with student use of AI, we we have come around to how universities can possibly better serve students through through better use of AI or through continued use. And there's no perfection, but continuous work on harnessing this really amazing tool?
I think we started there. We said at the beginning that the people that are now the experts are still learning themselves.
That is
So
yes.
we are learning how AI can be used. So admissions officers and faculty and graduates, researchers are learning how to use AI best for all sorts of things that happen in the university, for research, for administrative work, for data analysis. I mean, we can go on and on. And there are people that are out there talking about this all the time. Are there experts that the one you should follow? Absolutely not. Are there people that are giving you information that's interesting and we should begin to look at that data and listen to what those people are encouraging us to do? Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, Bobbi Kurshan, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a fascinating conversation. We are thrilled to have your support. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.